meet the quorum, and you're all welcome on the platform. Can I check Committee Secretary whether there are any apologies?
Chairperson, I received an apology from Ms. Mutahung. She will join the meeting late. She's just traveling to Cape Town, so she will join us as soon as she's landed, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can we have a move and a second for the adoption of the agenda?
Ms. Mohatse, Chair, and Mr. Mbuyani.
Ms. Mohatse.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I move adoption of the agenda as presented.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mbuyani.
Chairperson, thank you very much. Once again, Chair, I second the proposal for the adoption of the agenda.
Thank you very much. Members, the purpose of this briefing from the NEF is to engage on its financial and non-financial performance for the first quarter and second quarter of the 2022-23 financial year. This is so that the committee can assess the performance of the National Department against its resource allocation in compliance with Section 5 of the Money Bills Amendments Procedure and Related Matters Act of 2009. Before we proceed with the agenda, I want to inform the committee that I have to attend a SAEU engagement in Parliament this morning. So I want to propose that I be excused from the meeting at this stage and that the committee appoints an acting chairperson for the duration of the meeting. If I finish while you're still in progress, I will rejoin the meeting if possible. Thank you, members. Can I see hands for a chairperson, proposed chairperson for the meeting? Well, I'm not sure, Company Secretary, if you are supposed to do that.
No problem,
Yeah.
Chair. I will call for nominations for acting chairperson. Ms. Mohatse has raised the hand, Chair.
Honorable Mohatse.
No, thank you, Chairperson. I propose the name of Honorable Mbuyani to be the acting chairperson when you leave.
Thank you very much. Can I have a second for that?
Ms. Malamatia, Mr. Malamatia, Chair.
Honorable Malamatia.
Thank you, Chairperson. I stand to second the proposal by Ms. Mohatse.
Thank you. Are there any counter proposals? Are there any other proposals?
There seems to be no other proposals, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So I now hand over to Honorable Mbuyani. And I wish you a fruitful deliberations for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Thanks, Chairperson. Good morning. Chair, as you alluded to the fact that we will be receiving briefings from the NEF, Andre, the Secretariat, will guide us in terms of who is here, who is going to present in the process moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Chairperson. Chair, I will ask Ms. the COO of the DTIC, Ntombi, to introduce the NEF Chair. Matumela, Ms. Matumela, thanks.
Thank you, Andre. Good morning, Chairperson, Honorable Chairperson, and Honorable members. From the NEF side, Chair, we've got the CEO, Ms. Philisiwe Mthethwa, and she will introduce the team that she is with. We also have colleagues from the relevant branch in the GTIC, Susan Mangole, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Matomela. Over to you, CEO, NEF.
Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning, honorable members. I was just showing my face so that you can see that this is me. But because of all the energy challenges that we have, I will switch off the camera, Chair, if you allow me. Or do you want to see me?
No, we've already
Chair.
seen you. You can continue, introduce the team and also introduce the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So good morning, Chair, Honorable Mbuyani, the Acting Chairperson. Thank you for the opportunity and all the honorable members. I have already greeted you. Thank you for the opportunity to update the committee on the NEF's Q1 and Q2 financial and non-financial performance for the financial year 2022-2023. I must say, Chair, that I'm very disappointed that the chairperson of the committee will not participate in the discussion, because I'll be sharing a lot of exciting news about the work of the NEF, things that we've been seized with in the last 2 quarters, but we'll also highlight on some of the challenges that are facing all the companies, but more specifically Black-owned, companies as they navigate this environment, where there has been this huge energy crisis in the country. So I'm accompanied by a contingent of our executives, among whom is Mr. Mzita Imani, the NEF's General Counsel, who is an admitted attorney, who heads up our legal department, the turnarounds, workouts, and restructuring unit, as well as human resources and facilities. He actually came from one of the top 4 legal firms in the country, because we really pride ourselves on the caliber of individuals that we have been able to bring on board. Also joining us is Ms. Zamakanyile, who is a chartered accountant. She is the divisional executive for venture capital and corporate finance. She has oversight on the Umnoto Fund, which is responsible for supporting medium-sized Black-owned companies through expansion and equity transformation, as well as our Black Industrialist Unit, which we refer to as the Strategic Projects Fund. Ms. Kanyile also heads the NEF's Women Empowerment Fund and the immediate past president of the African Women Chartered Accountants Forum. We are also joined by Mr. Nhlanhla Nyembe, our divisional executive for township, rural, and SMME development, who is also a finance professional. We also have Mr. Pumutso Supuma, who's also a chartered accountant, who is our CFO. And I also want to acknowledge Mr. Sia Koko, who's the acting divisional executive for strategy planning and significant investments. I'll touch on some of these areas as I will proceed with my presentation, Chair. Chair and honorable members, the scope of my presentation begins with a high-level account of the NEF support for Black entrepreneurs to drive a recovery and growth post-COVID-19. We then reflect on how we have sought to maximize deal activity and to grow BEE through partnerships. You will see that when we'll be talking about these partnerships, we're talking about the partnerships that our Black-owned companies have with established businesses in South Africa, and partnerships with other government entities. The extensive work we have done to help drive economic recovery post the 2021 unrest will precede discussion of the NEF's financial performance. We will also acknowledge President Cyril Ramaphosa's comments about the National Empowerment Fund when we attended the Women's conference last year. So we'll just share, it's just 1 minute. And we'll share a sample of the NEF's investee portfolio with the committee. Our presentation will therefore focus on the salient pillars of the organization that falls under your wise stewardship. As the committee is aware, the work we do flows from the legislated injunction of the NEF, which is the only DFI that was given the mandate of exclusively driving the creation of Black economic empowerment companies, Black-owned companies in the country. We're mandated, therefore, to grow Black economic participation in South Africa, Chairperson. And if you look at our funding products, we start from 250,000 all the way up to 75 million rands. But because of the financial constraints that we are faced with as an organization, the board is looking at actually reducing the 75 million to about 40 million. But that is a strategic conversation that is happening at a board level. On the non-financial support side, the NEF offers an array of non-financial support interventions, starting with the pre-investment function, which is the first point of contact through which the NEF provides product advisory services. This is where we also manage the online business plan solution. And this is where we also facilitate entrepreneurial training and incubation. And then our socioeconomic development unit was established to empower Black people in existing transactions and other broad-based groups through various social development interventions, such as social facilitation, entrepreneurial training, and investor education. And through the post-investment unit chairperson, the NEF provides ongoing portfolio management and mentorship support, and is responsible also for collections as well as our legal compliance. Lastly, honorable members, as you'd actually see in all the other DFIs, even the banking sector would have this, we also have the turnaround workouts and restructuring units, which focuses mainly on rehabilitating distressed transactions and reducing impairments. So we call this unit our ICU unit, so where transactions would have some challenges, whether they're market related or whether it's something that has to do with their operations and so on, they will be referred to this unit, because we then work with turnaround specialists who will then assist us to try and resuscitate these businesses so that we can then keep them afloat and preserve the jobs that currently exist in the entities that I'm talking about. Empowerment dividend, I think the committee is familiar with this one, but I was just, these high-level slides to refresh your memory that these are the strategic pillars of the NEF. So when we assess transactions, these are the issues that we focus on when we look at our investments. So even though we pay attention to the financial returns and look at cash flow projections and other financial projections, but what really drives us is to see whether, from an ownership point of view, whether this is going to be an entity that is going to have 50 plus 1% Black ownership. We want to see if there are any women in that particular transaction. Obviously, even if we invest R1 1 million rand in an investment, we want to see how many jobs will be created. Even if it's 5 or 10 jobs, it's still okay, because it really adds, to what we're trying to achieve as a country. We look at the key sectors of the economy, geographic spread, and lastly, the investment return. So our work, therefore, honorable members, is planned, it's deliberate, it's scientific, logical, and systematic. As a result of the foresight and oversight of parliamentary committees and the DTIC, the NEF long reached institutional maturity, having achieved a number of key milestones since our operations began in 2007. And among these, Chairperson, this is an old slide. Sorry, Chair. Apologies, I was moving my other gadget, Chair, sorry about that.
Oh, okay. Okay, you can continue. Thank you.
So I was saying, Chair, this is an old slide, but what we do with the slide, Chair, we actually show progress in terms of all the key indicators that we are seeing on the screen, because these are the indicators that we are measured against by the DTIC and by Parliament. So that's why we just try and consolidate our work in one slide. So in terms of our approvals, Chairperson, the NEF has approved over 1,400 transactions that are worth more than 13 billion for Black empowered businesses across the country. And the total project value of these investments is now estimated at more than 23 billion, which is inclusive of third-party funding of 10.12 billion. So we also measure, Chair, the leveraging effects of our funds. So if we invest, let's say 10 million rands in a transaction that is worth 50 million. So we will first work with the entrepreneur to make sure that we de-risk that particular project. We handhold them, we help them just in terms of the conceptualization of the feasibility studies, taking the project from pre-feasibility, feasibility, bankable feasibility, and all the way to financial close. So we measure this portion, Chair, just to show the committee that our funds have enabled us to actually access funds, especially from the private sector. So we'll go to Standard Bank, Absa, or any of those banks to then try and, and persuade them to actually top whatever portion that we would have invested up. So then that total leveraged amount in terms of the third party funding equates to about 10 billion. Over 9 billion of this capital has gone directly into the economy or deployed directly into the economy. Well over 4.6 billion has been collected in repayments, and this has been reinvested into the NES funding mandate since inception to date. So this 4.6 billion Chairperson shows that our enterprises, even though we deal with tiny enterprises that are located sometimes in the townships and rural economies, that when we deploy our funding, that these enterprises have repaid our funds. In what is no doubt a seminal achievement, for 19 years running, the NEF has secured clean external audit opinions, which attest to the organization's integrity and financial management acumen. In this regard, the standards that we set for ourselves are the same that we hold our investees to. To date, our funding milestone has supported in excess of 119,000 jobs countrywide. And we continue to support potential and actual Black industrialists by propelling the full commercialization of all the 24 strategic and industrial projects. The one which comes to my mind, Chairperson, is the transaction that we've been working on for almost 2 years. It's located in the Free State. We were struggling to, so obviously we had done the feasibility studies with our partners, and we were struggling to get the strategic equity partner. It's gonna be in the biofuels industry, and what is good about it is going to allow us to empower everybody who is involved in that value chain, from your emerging farmers, because we are going to be using wheat as a feedstock to the plant that we are looking at, from your wheat production to the processing of wheat and all the way to the actual processing of the biofuel. So we're very, very excited, Chairperson. So when we maybe present again, on this, we'll be able to share more details. And that project alone, Chairperson, has the potential to create about 10,000 jobs. So I just thought, I should highlight that because it's also going to be located in one of the less developed areas of our country. And then we have the investor education program that has reached over 8.6 million Black South Africans, entrepreneurship training that has actually benefited about 6,800 entrepreneurs. And our regional office network, Chairperson, continues to shoulder the very high demand for funding from Black entrepreneurs, because about 72% of the transactions that we are looking at head office were originated from the regional offices. And as a result of dynamic mentorship program, as well as the daily monitoring of investments, the NEF has been able to ensure a stable invested portfolio that has weathered the storms of a volatile national and global economy. We will actually expand more on some of these issues, Chairperson. So this slide, Chairperson, summarizes the work of the NEF. That is before we go into the detail. We always try and consolidate all the key strategic drivers of our work. These are just annual collections, Chairperson. So with the first few years having been spent on establishing the systems as we were actually setting up the entity, we have now realized that the NEF's collection culture kicked into a higher gear during the 2012-2013 financial year end, nearly 10 years after its establishment. But this obviously comes with the pain of starting something. So it's the pain and the joy, actually, Chairperson, because if you look at where we have started and where we are now, nobody thought we were going to be able to reach this level of maturity as a DFI. So this is where we are sitting, as we speak. So for 2023, we collected about 426, 2022, it was 475. So the NEF's high-performing investees, Chairperson, have been servicing their debt obligations diligently, with 2020 showing an appreciable high of 495 million in collections. So our peace, Chairperson, and committee that cumulatively over 5 billion has been repaid by our investees. Then the next slide shows how the NEF is organized. We always try and preempt some of the questions from the committee. Other committee members will be familiar with the slide, but just to refresh your memory once again, the NEF does not limit its funding only to SMMEs, but indeed seek to see Black people also owning major corporations to become industrialists and to contribute to the country's growth. For this reason, so our definition of BEE, Chairperson, is not what we read about in the newspapers. We are not about the transfer of shares from white-owned businesses to Black-owned businesses. Ours is to ensure that if, for instance, we are looking at acquisition finance, that it has to be expansionary acquisitions so that you can then, through that particular transactions, make sure that you create jobs. So it's not like the normal BEE transactions that we are talking about. We support SMMEs in the townships. Those are the people who wake up every morning to actually go and run those businesses. So that's I know that this whole BEE debate has been lost in the detail, because a lot of people will think about shares when in fact we're talking about making sure that we get Black-owned companies that can also drive industrialization in our economy. So for this reason, Chair, the NEF funds across the economic spectrum, with 5 investment funds dedicated to supporting SMMEs, women-owned businesses, township and rural and community-owned businesses, medium-sized corporates, as well as potential industrial players. So the next slide shows our funded portfolio by sector. Once again, we try and consolidate before we get into the detail. So the NEF chairperson is aligned with the fundamental developmental goals of government and has been at the forefront of championing key strategic imperatives towards the advancement of these goals. If I may share a few of these examples in terms of providing support to Black industrialists. So this is a program, chairperson, that we are doing in partnership with the DTIC. So you may have heard about the Black industrialist program that is spearheaded by the DTIC. They will then, we will then go to the DTIC with those proposals. We will assist our entrepreneurs to conceptualize, some of the projects like the biofuels projects that I was referring to earlier. It took us about 2 full years to take it to where it is now. And then the DTIC will then come in and provide, obviously they do their own assessment and then decide on the quantum that they will be willing to also invest. If that is not enough, especially for these large industrial projects, we'll then take them to the likes of Standard Bank, commercial banks, and other DFIs, to like the PIC to see if they can support us with those initiatives. So in this area alone, a chairperson, we have projects that are valued at 12.6 billion. So this is not money that is coming from the balance sheet of the NEF. A certain portion of it out of the 12.6 billion is what I was referring to earlier as the leveraged portion. So since inception, chairperson, we have invested about 900 million in developing these industrial projects, and 24 of these are under development, while 5 are operational businesses. So if I talk about the biofuels, which is valued at 300 and something million rands, it will take that number to, in fact, it's not 5, we made a mistake here, it's 8 that have been commercialized. The mainstay of the NEF's funding track record has been in supporting SMMEs through a dedicated fund that supports entrepreneurship, procurement, and franchise funding, and provides business planning, incubation, training, and mentorship support. And to date, NEF has disbursed over 2.8 billion. We referred earlier to our passion, chairperson and honorable members, for township and rural funding through a dedicated fund that supports businesses in these localities. The businesses are in various sectors of the economy, including property, shopping malls, petrol stations, and tourism. And here we have disbursed over 2.4 billion. In the property sector, chairperson, we have confronted difficult market failures by introducing the property funding products. To date, we have disbursed over 684 million. In tourism, we have funded community-owned hotels and lodges to drive the growth of the sector. We do this in partnership with the Department of Tourism that has allocated more than 200 million to the NEF, which is an allocation that is supposed to be used towards providing support to businesses that are involved in the tourism sector. So the funding, their chairperson, will be done on a 60-40 percent split. The NEF will invest, if it's a 10 million rand property, whatever, a lodge or a hotel, a boutique hotel, the smaller ones. So let's say it's 10 million rands. So the NEF will put in the 6 million as a senior debt, and then the department will then top it up with the 40%, which will go in as a grant portion. We're very excited about that partnership, chairperson, because it has also allowed our entrepreneurs to actually benefit from the grant portion, which allows them, to actually get better cash flow projections when we look at their proposals. Another priority of government is affordable housing, where the NEF, in partnership with various industry stakeholders, has supported the construction of several social housing, student accommodation, and related projects. And these student accommodation projects, Chairperson, we now have them maybe in about 6 provinces of the country. Taking also a cue from the DTIC, the NEF has funded beneficiation across the agricultural value chain, and there we have invested over 478 million. In energy, Chairperson, we have invested over 673 million in service stations countrywide, 44% of which are owned and managed by Black women, and these investments have supported at least 3,845 jobs. So we also have a partnership in the energy sector, Chairperson, with all the oil majors in the country, Shell, BP, and others. They also use a similar model to the model that I was highlighting earlier, where they will give us some of their ED funds to then invest to the petrol stations that are supported by the NEF. So the implementation, Chairperson, of the mandate of the NEF, therefore, is attuned to the developmental and transformation imperatives of the South African economy. So with these slides, we cast now our sights back over 5 years. The next slide. We cast our sights back over 5 years to show how the NEF has reached a new high in its performance, having approved transactions in excess of 1.3 billion rands in the last financial year. So if you look at the second column, you'll see those statistics, Chairperson, for the last financial year. This represented a 156% leap from the previous year's approval of 520 million, registering the highest value of approvals in the entire operational history of the NEF. And during the 3 quarters of the current financial year, approvals stood at 626 million rands up to and including end of December 2022. As with approvals, commitments, and disbursements, so the table there is what the DTIC will measure the NEF against. It's one of the indicators. It's not everything, but I'm just focusing on the core indicators. You can see that with regards to approvals, commitments, disbursements, we also reached new pinnacles in the last financial year, having rocketed above the billion rand mark respectively. So what it says is that the NEF, if we were to be given, or to receive more allocations from our government, that we actually have the capability, operational capability, to actually go way above the 1.3 billion, even up to 2 billion per annum. So equally gratifying in an economy that lost 3 million jobs as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and with women being the most affected and most vulnerable at this point in time, we can be proud to have defied the trend by supporting a greater number of jobs in the previous financial year, in excess of 11,000 jobs. Our commitment to supporting the growth of Black women entrepreneurs through our dedicated investment instrument, the Women Empowerment Fund, remains undiminished despite reduced showing in that period. But at least, Chairperson, we were ahead of everyone because we have set a target for ourselves, even before our government and the president made the announcement last year that the target for all the government-owned entities should be, I think he said 40%. So we have had this target for many years already. So I'm pleased that in the first 3 quarters of this financial year, performance in this area has recovered, Chairperson, having increased from 28% in the previous financial year to 35%. To maintain this trend, we will continue to work closely with women-based business organizations to generate deal flow countrywide, because indeed the indictment of inequality, Chairperson, in our society needs more women at the forefront of the economy. One of the many entities that we continue to work with in this regard is the Women Economic Assembly, WECONA, to advance the cause of women economic liberation. For instance, in October last year, Chairperson and honorable members, the NEF was requested to host a session with a delegation that was coming from Spain, an opportunity that we used to invite other women investees, because there we were looking at creating partnerships between South African, women-owned enterprises and the Spanish companies that were in the country. So these are among the many strategic and tactical opportunities we'll continue to pursue, Chairperson. Then coming to the Q1, Q3 performance results. So in terms of taking the mandate of the NEF, Chairperson, across all provinces, a total of 106 million was invested in the Northern Cape, Northwest, and in the Eastern Cape, representing 18% of annual disbursements. The investor education campaign is an undertaking through which the NEF goes to the villages and townships across the length and breadth of the country. So in this regard, a total of 84 investor education sessions have been held. So in terms of the Q1, Q3 financial performance, we fulfilled the set objectives also in terms of social facilitation, where 119 sessions were held during the period against the target. We are pleased to report that despite tough economic fundamentals, we've also been able to achieve our return on investment, which is one of the key indicators that we look at. So in terms of approvals, we have approved 141 transactions that are worth 606 million rands. In terms of commitments, we're sitting at 487 million. Disbursements are sitting at 608 million. And the jobs that we have supported are sitting at close to 4,000 jobs that have been supported. So these are the targeted provinces. I have already spoken about this: the investor education, entrepreneurial training, business incubation, and referrals. I won't take you through each and every KPI that we have in our balance scorecard. Next slide. Collections are sitting at 80.7%. So these are all the indicators, Chairperson, that we have in the APP with the GTIC. Let's move forward. So Chairperson, this slide shows the consolidated fund deal activity. This is the summary. So what we are saying here, Chairperson, that behind the numbers that you are seeing on the slides, there's a lot of work that goes, into this behind the scenes before you can hit the target of 1.3 billion rands per annum. So what else is the NEF, busy with in terms of, receiving these transactions, looking at the proposals, screening them, and taking them all the way to the DD process, and then eventually taking it to the committees. So we're saying this slide consolidates the work of the NEF specialist investment funds, namely Imbewu, which supports SMMEs, Umnoto Fund. I have already spoken about Umnoto, whose raison d'etre is to propel the growth of medium-sized businesses, then the Township Rural and Community Development Fund, the Strategic Projects Fund, together these units, Chairperson, which constitutes the core pillars of the NEF and which include our regions in all the 9 provinces, screened a total of 1,362 applications worth 20.1 billion rands, with 768 applications worth 11 billion rands having been screened during 2020-21 financial year. So what we are trying to demonstrate here, honorable members, is the extent of the market demand of the NEF's value proposition. So you'll see that you have approvals, active DD deals, there's the due diligence deals, declined screening. So we're saying in terms of our capacity, we believe we can actually do more, because if you look at the transactions that were declined or withdrawn, it would mainly be because sometimes of the quantum, that we'll be looking at, we'll actually see that if you look at the funds that we have at our disposal, we will not have sufficient funds to actually support those transactions, but we don't, chase people away. We will still be in a position to refer them to the other DFIs like the IDC, DBSA, and others. But we're saying this is an opportunity cost or an opportunity loss to the economy, because sometimes some of those concepts will just disappear, even though you'll know that this is a wonderful concept, but because of our balance sheet capacity, we will then decline the transactions. So we're just sharing with the committee so that you can see some of the work that happens behind the scenes. So some of the reasons for the declines, I said, it would be based on the quantum. Of course, sometimes if a transaction is not commercially viable, and applications where entrepreneurs sometimes are not able to submit critically important documents or meet vital conditions precedent, deals where applicants sometimes refuse to partner with women, because if depending on the quantum, sometimes we will actually guide some of the entrepreneurs to make sure that they also involve women in those transactions, but also transactions sometimes that are ethically questionable, and those where there's a likelihood of fronting. We've seen a lot of those where you'll have maybe a black and a white entrepreneur. So when you interview the black entrepreneur about the transaction, you'll find that they don't have any understanding whatsoever with regards to what they will be getting into. But I'm not saying we have not supported legitimate partnerships between black and white entrepreneurs. We have a lot of those, but others will actually look very, very they wouldn't look good, Chairperson. So similarly, given the yet unrealized recapitalization of the NEF, management obviously is compelled, Chairperson, to discriminate more favorably for transactions that show greater potential for success. So in light of these realities, the approval rate was 15% of applications by volume and 7% by value of applications received in 2021 financial year. And then the next slide, I'm showing the same slide, but on a fund basis. This is Imbewu, which is our SMME. So they attracted 785 applications with a total value of 3.9 billion. So it just shows the appetite for our services and products, Chairperson and honorable members. And of the total applications assessed here, we only reached 12%. With a total value of 445 million that was approved. And then the next one is the rural township and rural economy. The same here, I won't take you through all the details, Chairperson, because the trend, if you look at the trend, it's actually very similar to what we're looking at. And then Umnoto. Umnoto ended the year having assessed 304 applications with a total value of 8.4 billion. A total 56 deals, or 18%, was approved. Chairperson. Next slide, it's looking at cooperatives. On the cooperatives front, 19 operating in various sectors were provided with financial, 19 cooperatives operating in various sectors were provided with financial and non-financial support, benefiting 95 cooperatives. The NEF has further provided entrepreneurship training as part of non-financial support to all the 19 cooperatives that we assisted. 98% of all supported cooperatives are actually managed and owned by women. Together, these cooperatives, Chairperson, have created 253 jobs, and they operate in the following sectors. They are in agribusiness, clothing and textiles, arts and crafts, confectionery and baking, as well as recycling. And then on partnerships and the unlocking of third-party funds, to date, the NEF has approved transactions worth more than 13 billion across the country with a total value of 23 billion. Live to date, the NEF has leveraged the third-party funding amounting to 10 billion, which I was talking about earlier in the consolidated slide. What this shows is that the NEF is the catalyst for unlocking economic value, because once we have de-risked transactions, provided business incubation support, a lot of hand-holding and training where applicable, especially in the SMME and rural transactions, as well as feasibility and related funding, third-party funders and commercial banks are then emboldened to actually come forward and work with us. And then these are just the next slide, the allocations by the DTIC and DOT to NEF. So Chair, the NEF was able to achieve the significant breakthroughs in terms of approvals, commitments, and disbursements because of the success in securing allocations from the DTIC, the Department of Transport, and the Solidarity Fund in the year under review. Even though the recapitalization challenges, Chair, of the NEF are far from over, we have the DTIC and Minister Patel to thank for having entrusted the NEF with meaningful allocations over the past 2 financial years. These allocations include 141 million for Women Empowerment Fund, 200 million for COVID-19, 150 million for SMME Distress Fund, another allocation of 150 million for the Black Business Manufacturing Enhancement Program, equally significant through facilitation, Chairperson, by the National Treasury and the DTIC. The Department of Transport has allocated over 1.1 billion rands to the NEF for disbursement to the taxi industry as part of government's commitment to providing relief for businesses that have been affected by the pandemic. So when I was asking the DG of the Department of Transport on the rationale for allocating these funds to the NEF, even though we were excited, Chairperson, I must say, because this fund alone, the Taxi Relief Fund, which is a partnership we have with the Department of Transport, has allowed the NEF to employ about 95 young professionals, interns, and graduates who are just sitting at home and doing nothing. So we took them, we trained them. I will still talk a little bit more about that initiative. So we wanted to find out, so why the NEF DG? So he was saying, Chairperson, that it's because of our track record, ethical leadership. They knew that if they allocate these funds to the NEF, that, you know, we will be doing our work diligently, and that we'll be able to account for each and every cent that has been allocated to us. And you'll remember, Chairperson, that when you do these disbursements, these are tiny, tiny amounts. of about 5,000 per taxi, license. So it's a lot of work, Chairperson, from our side, just in terms of making sure that we mobilize the taxi industry and everything else. We had to, even initiate processes like a new IT system, that had to be installed that would then allow us to do this kind of work. We have a call center. That's where you'll find all these young people, doing this work, from. So when you are up in Gauteng, we would be very happy, Chairperson and honorable members, to take you to this call center. So thank you, Chairperson. I just wanted to share those exciting news. So following the social unrest that devastated businesses in Gauteng, Chairperson, and KwaZulu-Natal during the month of June last year, the NEF, the DTIC has allocated a total of 750 million to the NEF for the economic recovery. And from our partners, the Solidarity Fund, we secured 273 million rands to support businesses that have been affected by the slump in the economy as a result of the pandemic and last year's unrest. And by the way, Chairperson, so you'll remember that the Solidarity Fund was a private sector initiative as well, even though government was involved in it. They told us also, because in order for us to secure the 273 million for our SMMEs, we had to go do presentations to their board, which mostly, had CEOs from your large, corporates in South Africa. They said they had never done this work with a government entity. So we're the first and the last entity that they worked with. So this brings, Chairperson, the total secured over the past 2 years to a whopping 2.7 billion rands, Chairperson, and we're very grateful. The AG came to conduct audits on all these funds, and I'm very pleased, Chairperson, to inform the committee that we also got a clean audit opinion on all these funds after the AG had conducted their audits. And then on the funding women entrepreneurs, despite lower disbursement for Black women entrepreneurs last year, we are pleased that over the past 12 years, 40% of all NEF approvals have benefited Black women entrepreneurs. 50% of the investment have benefited Black women entrepreneurs. 45% of the investments have benefited SMMEs owned and managed by Black women entrepreneurs in South Africa. And the 44%, Chairperson, that I spoke about earlier, of the investments that we have made in the ownership of fuel stations, these are also owned by Black women, 44% of the 675 million. I think we're now sitting at 130 petrol stations or 185. And then NEF, Economic Distress Fund, milestones, Chairperson, this is for your bedtime reading. We're just showing you now on each and every fund how much has been dispersed. The NEF Women Empowerment Fund, that following an injection of 141 million from the DTIC for concessionary funding, the NEF was able to augment this amount to enable support for Black women-owned enterprises. Then we have the NEF Black Business Manufacturing Fund, and here we have approved over 93 million for 15 businesses. And then the Solidarity Fund partnership, which came about after that spate of unrest in KZN and Gauteng in 2021. So I have already mentioned that the Solidarity Fund allocated 273 million rands towards the partnership, and the NEF was working hand in hand with so we also invested our portion, to actually top this amount up. So, and the Solidarity Fund allocation was used as follows: 210 million was used as a blended finance to allocate grants of up to 5 million rands per project, whilst the loan portion came from the NEF's balance sheet. 20 million was used to support the pharmacies and the medical businesses which were destroyed during the outbreak of the unrest to ensure availability of medical care in the affected places. And 43 million was used to support cooperatives and subsistence businesses. And parallel to all these initiatives that I'm talking about, Chairperson, the IDC was also given the task of also doing the same, but they were expected to actually support all the businesses that we have in the country. And so because of the NEF's mandate, of course, we had to focus on Black-owned enterprises. So I don't want to create the impression that the only entities that were assisted were Black-owned enterprises, but with the Solidarity Fund money, that allocation did not have color, Chairperson. We supported both Black and white-owned companies. On the Taxi Relief Fund, I have already spoken about this fund, that it was 1.1 billion, which has been subsequently revised to 710 million rands by the DOT after reviewing the total number of taxi operating licenses across the country through their own internal review process. We're pleased to report that the NEF has finalized over 85% of applications received, and the Taxi Relief Fund will close on 31 March 2023. So this is where we are on that fund, Chairperson. Next slide. So to implement the Taxi Relief Fund, the NEF recruited, we made a mistake here, Chairperson, is actually 95 young unemployed graduates who possess various qualifications as trainees, because what happened, Chairperson, when we started the project, we started with 65, but as soon as you give these young, graduates the opportunity just to go, wake up and go to work, what is interesting is that a lot of other entities, now that you have, even if it's 4 or 5 months work experience, that they're just, poaching them from us. So as they come in, others will actually leave, the NEF. So we're excited though, because of the high number of graduates who have now moved on to actually go and join other corporates in South Africa. So the graduates were provided with different forms of training in line with the operations of the NEF to prepare them for the work. 63% of the trainees are female, and all trainees were recruited and deployed across all the 9 provinces. About 30-something of these graduates were able to actually get full-time employment. And then the next slide is just some of the work we did on the economic recovery, Chairperson, that's given the repercussions. The NEF, of course, is grateful to government and the DTIC in particular for having availed a total 3.85 billion rands to assist businesses in and I have already mentioned that a total 650 million was allocated by the DTIC to the NEF. So what was exciting about, I know that, Chairperson, this was very, very sad, but I'm saying when we are faced with a crisis like the one that we're faced with, you have to actually come out of that mode of feeling sorry for yourself and then think about what sort of interventions are we supposed to put in place that will enable us to actually deliver on this task. So what was exciting, Chairperson, about this work is that we had to deploy our young professionals over a period of several weeks you know, to actually go and work in different areas in KZN and here in Gauteng. So they had to go to areas like KwaNongoma, Ixopo, Mkhanyakude, Jozini, Alex, Soweto, because what happened during the riots is that a lot of the entrepreneurs lost their information, financial information. So they had to go and try and reconstruct most of the financial information, because even though we were responding to the crisis, but the entrepreneurs were still expected to actually submit, you know, all the necessary information that would allow us to then make those investments. So these are all the areas that our investment professionals went to. Next slide is just showing the pipeline that we're dealing with at the time. So, and then we look at the transaction process flow here, Chairperson, that as the committee would agree, extraordinary circumstances require innovation. This slide, the next slide, shows how the NEF has set itself the target of dispersing the funds within 2 weeks of approval. Specifically, we have had to shorten the turnaround time for screening, due diligence, approval and drafting of loan agreements for disbursement. So this has required our investment professionals to work around the clock, including weekends, to meet the high volume of applications and navigate the exigencies of the operating environment. So this was a key takeaway from that whole experience, Chairperson, because now we have taken these lessons that we learned during this period, and we're trying to apply some of those things to our other day-to-day activities. And then on the governance and compliance, which is another key performance indicator that the DTIC look at when they assess our work. Our internal audit function has been instrumental in providing assurance in respect of governance and compliance for the implementation of the audit work, especially for all the funds that were allocated to us by the DTIC and the Department of Transport. In particular, this entailed assessing and verifying audit readiness review on all these transactions in preparation for the audit that was conducted by the AG. And as I have already mentioned, Chairperson, we got a clean audit opinions from all those audits that were conducted on us. Slide 39 is the provincial portfolio splits. What we seek to demonstrate here is that the total value of the portfolio is at 31st March was 2.4 billion, comprising 286 investees. In terms of value and volume, the historically developed provinces constitute the bulk of the portfolio, and this was compounded by the crisis, you know, that I was talking about earlier, Chairperson, where I think for about 8 months we're just focusing on Gauteng and KZN because that's where, you know, the riots happened. So it has skewed our numbers. Slide 40, these are just our key financial indicators to highlight that overall surplus grew by 397% to 1.2 billion. That was our surplus. Unencumbered cash grew by 25%, NAV sitting at 5 billion, and the cost to income ratio has reduced by 23% to 41%, Chairperson, which is in line with most of the DFIs in this space. The impairment ratio has remained the same, while the return on investment has increased to 8.3 billion. And then this is just the performance of our MTN investment that was allocated to the NEF by our government many years ago. You'll remember that the total value of this investment when it was done was about 300 million rands. And as we speak, the value is now sitting at 1.2 billion, and the total number of shares amounted to about 10 million. Portfolio size of the investments accounts for 30% of total NEF portfolio. I won't talk about, the market share price and all of those. I was just sharing the information with the committee. But what is also interesting, Chairperson, is that the life-to-date dividend, in addition to the market value of our shares in MTN, the life-to-date dividend that we have received over a period of time currently sits at 926 million rand. So I just wanted to say, Chairperson, that this is what I call visionary leadership, because nobody would have thought that the NEF would benefit, so much from this investment when it was done many years ago. So slide 43 is just showing the cost to income ratio is between 54 to 58%. This is for your bedtime reading. So it looks, if you look at it, you can see that we have reduced it, over a period of time. So then slide 44, Chairperson, talks about our future plans. I'll be done just in 5 minutes, Chairperson. The NEF mandate continues, Chairperson, to promote and facilitate Black economic participation through the provision of financial and non-financial support to Black-owned and managed businesses. It is anticipated that the NEF will approve deals and disburse deals of 7 billion and 4.2 billion, respectively, in the next 5 years. So we have modeled our numbers based on the discussions that we have with other potential funders, because we do realize that because of the financial constraints that our government has, we can't just, always go cap in hand and ask for additional funding. So some of those discussions, Chairperson, will be finalized very, very soon. In fact, some of the funds have been, approved. Like, for instance, there's a partnership, we call it Sakhumizi Fund, that we are going to have with a DBSA. I can talk about it because the funding has already been approved. Maybe I won't mention the amount. So what DBSA said to us is that they can see, our track record, the work we're doing in the SMME space and so on. But obviously this fund will support both Black-owned companies and Black-owned companies that are going into partnerships with other white companies. So we are very excited about the partnership, but maybe, Chairperson, I will not mention the amount now because I don't know how far they are with their approval processes, but we do know that it has been approved. And the weak macroeconomic indicators such as GDP rates continue to have an impact on the loan book, of the NEF. Chairperson, I don't want to talk about the exciting, stuff only. It's important to also highlight some of the challenges, but we are closely monitoring those investments. Significant, we're seeing a lot of a significant impact on our companies as a result of the energy crisis that I mentioned earlier. Operating expenditure expected to grow in line with the average CPI rate of 5%. Collections rate of 80% is still forecasted. And then we're struggling with the impairment ratio because of the current macroeconomic situation that we find ourselves in. And then the approvals and disbursement target slide. This is what goes to the DTIC for the approval by the minister. So this is still work in progress. And then as I conclude, Chairperson, I'm pleased to report, Chairperson and honorable committee members, that a personage of no lesser esteem than the president has acknowledged the work of the NEF. And this is what President Ramaphosa had to say. I will say this in closing. Are we able to? It's just 2 minutes, Chairperson. Volume. Is there a problem? Whilst they are setting up a chair, maybe it's gonna come just in closing. I will stop if it starts playing, Chairperson. So thank you for your forbearance, Chair and honorable members, and for allowing us to take you through some of the highlights of the work of the NEF. I trust that the presentation will allow for a meaningful discussion of some of the elements of the work entrusted to the NEF. And this is our record of contribution towards our country's quest for renewal, courage, and growth. We have strived to do much with little. We have shortened our systems and processes to move with speed and agility in approving over 1.3 billion rand in the past financial year. And when the floods came, we went to the fore to share food and shelter, clothing, books, hope, with the people who were affected by the floods. And this is because family is one of nature's greatest masterpieces, honorable members. I will stop there. The video, Chairperson, is giving us a problem.
Thank you very much, CEO. I don't know, maybe the video still giving us some challenges, but nevertheless, we have gathered your information that you were presenting. We will therefore, I don't know, because in terms of the program now, we were going to have some break, but let us continue with the discussion. You can take off the presentation so that I can able to see hands here for discussions. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, Secretariat, let's check what is the process now. I can see there's a hand, Secretariat. Let's check the process now. In terms of the way are we, but we'll take hands. Then from there, we'll take it forward. I can see there's a hand, Honorable Macpherson, Honorable Muatse, Honorable Benson Amashe. Any other hand? We'll start there for now. Honorable Macpherson.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the opportunity. Chair, you will recall at the last meeting where we engaged the NEF, I specifically requested, and the chair of the NEF or the CEO of the NEF was not available at that time, and we were dealing with their financial results. And I'd specifically asked last year just for an update of the performance indicators for the CEO, the baseline salary, performance bonuses, and increase for that salary year on year. The entity couldn't provide that information at that time, and it was committed to responding in writing. Today, the entity has failed to provide any of that information, which I think is regrettable and should not be taken lightly. But that's something for the chair to raise going forward. However, what I would request is, with the presence of the CEO now, is for those answers to be given for the salary for the current financial year, the bonuses from the last financial year awarded, what those indicators were to justify bonuses, and what the salary bonuses and increase will be for the next financial year. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Macpherson. Honorable Mwate.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me start by welcoming the presentation from the NTT and then the work well done. I am very much impressed by the participation of the women in this entity and the work well done of them and the audit outcomes, Chairperson. I've got a serious concern, especially in rural provinces like Limpopo. Last month, we came from our oversight visit whereby we meet with the SMEs and especially Black-owned companies that are progressing. But the challenges they have, most of them, is funding. Others, they don't know about the NEF, and others, they do apply, but they get no response. And I suspect maybe they are not complying, but if they don't respond to them, how can they know why they don't get funding? I think we have been long talking about the awareness campaign for our people to get information about the entity. And then we don't have maybe program of the entity to go down there to our provinces to give them information, or how can they apply for the funding. I think, Chairperson, the entity must come to our constituents for more information sharing, and also they must invite us when they come to our constituents to assist them for spreading the information to the masses on the ground. We have a serious challenge of unemployment in the country. We must assist these people. They have a potential of creating more jobs. And then if they don't get information on how they will get in funding, it's going to be a serious challenge. In Limpopo, last month when we were at a oversight visit, I think you will witness that we have met more SMEs, especially in Nkuankua and Seshio, on the issue of funding is a very serious challenge. Maybe they can assist us to go there and assist those SMEs. Thank you very much, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Honorable Mwate. Honorable Benz Prince Namashe.
Thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity. And I think in welcoming the very detailed and comprehensive presentation by the CEO, which is really, which gives a breath of fresh air. You know, in moments where out of a number of difficult situations, especially in the business sector, with the challenges around load shedding and so on, putting especially the SMEs in a very distressful situation. Now, this kind of report is really encouraging. Maybe, Chair, the first thing to say is that our economy, Chair, is about redress is about ensuring that there's inclusivity. Hence, the notion of inclusive economy. So what does that mean? It means DFIs like National Empowerment Fund must be conscious and deliberate in creating those opportunities that ensure inclusive participation of our people who were historically excluded. And that's the purpose of establishing the National Empowerment Fund. The legislation actually sought to achieve that. Through industrialization, which must ensure the participation of small business, who, by the way, must not continue to be small. They must grow and actually become entrepreneurs and industrialists. NEF must not apologize for creating Black industrialists in a country whose context, it's always important to understand the context. The country that has a historical context of deliberate, historical, and institutionalized exclusion of Black people in the main economy. So this DFI, together with all other DFIs, they must be deliberate on that. They must be deliberate in ensuring that there's a clear localization system. Especially in the manufacturing sector, we expect that you support businesses that manufacture so that we are able to deal with this serious challenge of exporting raw material, because by exporting raw material, we are actually exporting jobs. How do we beneficiate? So we must be deliberate as CEO when it comes to ensuring that we support Black businesses in South Africa in ways that will ensure that by the time we get to the export, we export finished products. So it's very, very, very critical. And the third element, which talks to this strategy of an inclusive economy, is around capable and ethical state. We are quite impressed by the report of Clean Audit, because it gives confidence. It shows that Black people have the ability to do things, to do business in an ethical way that is consistent with international standards. So that, Chair, even the question around the remuneration of our senior executives in DFIs. We must not apologize for paying our people what they deserve. Especially if they have the requisite competency, they have the requisite skill and qualification over and above that. We must not be apologetic about that. As long as they deliver, as long as they conduct business in the ethical way, they are able to account for each and every cent that they use, as it has been demonstrated. That must be done because it's all about appreciating Black excellence. This is all about redress. This is all about ensuring that the majority of South Africans are in charge of the economy of South Africa. Let's change the situation. Let's change the paradigm and be deliberate about that. What I think, though, needs to happen, we must get a very clear metrics in terms of all the projects that the CEO has made mention of. My concern is very close to what Honorable Mwatse raised about the visibility of NEF in those rural hinterland or rural outskirts. I'm a bit concerned when you have only 18% annual disbursement. And that is spread over Northern Cape, Free State, Northwest, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and Eastern Cape, the West poorest provinces. Perhaps we need to get a very clear report to say, in Gauteng, what are the projects that have been funded and the quantum? In Western Cape, in KwaZulu-Natal, particularly around Durban, and the rest of other provinces, because we must change this paradigm of thinking that the concentration of South Africa's economy is around Western Cape, is around Gauteng, is around Durban. It must be every, look, for instance, Limpopo is a mining province. Northwest is a mining province. You would have expected that Mpumalanga is a mining province.
Chair, on a point of order.
Please, you can wait a bit, Honorable Benz, so that we hear the point of order.
Chair, you know, we're always encouraged to be concise and to the point with our questions. This is quite frankly a soliloquy. And at some point, can we have a question? Because, you know, we also have other items of the business to be dealing with. Mr. Burns has been talking for 15 minutes now, and we don't actually have a question yet. Thanks.
No, that's a point of debate. That's a point of debate. It's not a point of order. You can continue,
we must all be
Honorable
given 15,
Benz.
20 minutes to answer questions and just make statements. But really.
Yeah, well, I don't want us to get to that, Chair, because I think some of these levels of comprehension may not be quite easy for a matriculant like Honorable Macpherson. So what I'm actually talking about here probably could be—
Chair, point of order, please.
Yes.
Honorable Cuthbert.
Chair, I would like Honorable Burns to withdraw that remark. I don't know if he thinks it's, makes him feel better if he disparages other people's educational background, considering that majority of the country do have matric. I think that's a rather unfair comment and disparaging of a colleague. I ask him to withdraw that comment, please.
No, but Honorable McPherson cannot challenge my intelligence.
Chair,
It's as simple as all that.
as far as I understand, I was still addressing you. Honorable Burns is now talking without having been acknowledged. Can you please teach him about the procedure, considering he has a master's degree in that
No,
case?
you see now, honorable members, don't degenerate this meeting. Let's give Honorable Burns to conclude his remarks and the question so that we allow the entity to respond. We are honorable members, we can be engaging at that level. We will have a space where we can be able to engage on this educational backgrounds and all those things. Can you conclude, the Honorable Burns Ngamash?
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. But Honorable Chair, we must not be hypocritical here. We know exactly why some of these concerns are raised. It's because my argument is actually touching the raw nerve. Is touching the raw nerve of the past dispensation. And other people here are here to defend it. And we're not going to apologize for that. My point, Chair, is I would be happy if NEF would have that spread of saying, this is what we have done in these provinces. And the last 2 points, Chair, I would want to get a sense as to their relationship with organizations like NAFCOC, because those are the organizations whose membership is largely around the sector of SMMEs. To what extent are they having an institutionalized relationship such that they are able to assist those businesses of those people? And lastly, the relationship with provincial DFIs, because they are also, and of course the SEZs. We went to Limpopo, went to Mpumalanga. It would seem there's a great need to ensure that local businesses there are assisted to establish their businesses, whether in the manufacturing or whatever. I would want to see a very deliberate and conscious program and plan that seeks to intervene in that space. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Burns Ngamash. We will continue with the clarity seeking question for the next round. Let us give the opportunity to the entity, the CEO, and also other members of the executive to respond to those clarity seeking questions and or comments that were made by honorable members. Over to you and the CEO and the team, and even the department, trade and industry. There are some questions that needs their response here. Thank you very much. Over to you, CEO.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, honorable members, for the questions. Chairperson, I'll also ask my colleagues, the executive, but let me kick off and try and respond to Honorable McPherson. So McPherson, the CEOs don't actually, they don't decide on their packages. So what the board will do, they will look at the market data, they would look at similar entities, even if those entities are managed and led by men, because in terms of gender parity, it doesn't matter whether you are running a DFI that is led by a woman or by a man, they will actually want to make sure that there's equity, across the board. So that is the exercise, and that is the information that we will be very happy to share, Chairperson, with the committee. But by the way, Chairperson, we did submit the response, so I don't know what would have happened to it, even though this is information that is publicly available. We are not trying to hide anything, because if you open our annual reports, Honorable Chairperson, you'll find it. But also, as a response to your question, we had done it in exactly the same way that we are asking for it now. And but obviously it has to go through the DTIC, but I would be happy to submit it once again, because for the past 7 years, I know that when we go to Parliament, Honorable Macpherson will not engage with the substance of the macroeconomic issues that we are, grappling with as a country. The one question that he comes with all the time, Chairperson, is this one. So I always prepare for it. It's ready, because I knew that he was going to raise the question. So going to Honorable Mwache, so Honorable Mwache, and we have noted your valid comments. When we come to Parliament, Chairperson, we know that it's tough. We prepare, we want to make sure, that we provide as much information as we can. And we are always, looking forward to engaging even on the difficult, issues that are raised by the parliamentarians. But what is really, exciting about what the honorable members, especially Honorable Member Mwache and Honorable Member Mashe, are raising, they are actually raising, substantive issues. So you really want to engage with them. You actually feel that, wow, I'm really in Parliament. So we really welcome your questions. So Honorable Mwache, the difficulty that the NEF has, and I have noted all your comments, the difficulty we have, it's not like we don't want to go to these provinces, which is why, for instance, for a small entity, that does about 1.3 billion per annum, to still ensure that we have a presence and a footprint in all the 9 provinces, I think that is something that is commendable, because we did not say, oh, we only have 1.3 or 1 billion that we can disperse per annum, and therefore we will not even try. So it's not out of lack of trying, because I will talk about other very exciting initiatives that we are having. So for instance, we launched a fund with the Premier of the Northern Cape. When we launched the fund, if I just look at the numbers of people who were there, both SMMEs and industrialists and your large corporates, because remember, when we talk SMMEs, we also want to make sure that there are those, symbiotic relationships that our SMMEs will have with established businesses. Like, for instance, if you talk about mining, most of our SMMEs will be on the services related side of the mining sector. So if you have a mining company like Exxaro, you want to make sure that our SMMEs will be able to actually provide their services to those large businesses. So that session that was actually opened by the Premier was attended by more than 1,000 companies in the Northern Cape. But what the Premier did, he has invested monies from the provinces into this fund that is being managed by the National Empowerment Fund, which once again talks to our track record, our expertise in terms of managing these third-party funds. So what works well, or just based on our observation, is where there is that, strategic partnership between NEF and the local DFIs, in line with what Honorable Nxamashe, was saying earlier. Because if you just go there on your own, we only have 140 employees, and then you have 1 billion that you must maybe invest in about 300 companies. There's no way you'll be able to actually have the footprint and the reach, that would be, optimal, if I can call it that. So because of that partnership, it has allowed us to even employ more people in the Northern Cape, because those funds are ring-fenced for the benefit of beneficiaries who are actually located in that particular region. In Limpopo, we have a lot of other exciting investments, Honorable Mwache, that we can talk about. You may have heard about Hosiami, that employs more than 400 people. It's in the agro-processing sectors of the economy. But if you look at the whole value chain of Hosiami, I think all in all, we have about 700 people who benefit from that investment, because you have your emerging farmers who actually supply Hosiami with their produce. We are also looking at there's a poultry company that we just approved a few weeks ago. So there's going to be we're doing it in partnership with the provincial government of Limpopo. In fact, I'm excited, Chairperson, to just inform the honorable members that the MEC for Economic Development with the CEO of LEADER, which is the provincial DFI, HOD, everybody came to see us just a few weeks ago, and we sit with them. So the MECs, the HODs, there to say, where are these investment opportunities? What are we seeing in Limpopo? What are the successes? Where do we need support from the provinces, and so on? We did a similar exercise also with the provincial government of the Eastern Cape, where once again we had the MEC, CEOs of local DFIs, and so on. And what we have also seen is that when you have those sessions, we are then in a better position to collaborate and even partner, in terms of identifying those opportunities. But what I want to highlight to the committee members is the fact that it's not because there's lack of proposals. We are getting a lot of proposals. And as I said, last year alone, we received 768 applications that are worth 11 billion. So they were coming from all the 9 provinces. But, Honorable Chairperson, you can only do so much with the funds that we have, at our disposal. So maybe what the committee can start thinking about would be, to say, how do you as a committee maybe try and assist NEF to unlock additional funding, for us, so that we can support all of the good things that you have mentioned to us, even with the government of the Western Cape, Honorable Macpherson. By the way, the government of the Western Cape has allocated funds to the NEF because you actually have like-minded individuals who work in these government departments. We're also excited about the fact that we now have the honorable member who was a respected member of this committee, Honorable Hill Lewis, who's now the mayor, because we're just thinking that we actually want to reach out to him as well and his team to actually see how we can, develop those partnerships with the Western Cape. So it's across the board. And Honorable Mwache said, it would be great if you could also go and visit some of the investments. We used to do that Honorable Moache, would invite, the honorable members whenever we're doing a site visit or when there was a big launch of one of the projects. You'll remember, for instance, the members of this committee were with us in Mpumalanga when we actually launched the Gorge, which is also one of the exciting investments that we have in that part of the country. Most of the members were there, so maybe something that we must look into going forward, because even when we opened our hospitals, the hospital here in Gauteng and the other one in Mpumalanga, and now we're looking at another one at Umtata, the honorable members were also invited. So maybe let me allow Mzi to come in. Mzi, do you want to add something? Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, CEO, and thank you to the honorable members. I think, CEO, you have covered all the issues. I think maybe just to mention that we do work with organizations like NAFCOC. We do have relationships with them. And I think also in terms of the Limpopo in particular, we will be in touch with Honorable Moache just to make sure that we can also increase our reach, because he has actually offered to assist us, because we always looking to reach more communities. We've been to areas like Bogo, Problastar, Tzaneen, and Waterberg in Limpopo, but we constantly looking for more communities to reach and also to touch. When it comes to the issue of load shedding, through you, Chair, we are working on proposals, and that we are engaging our shareholder, the DTIC and National Treasury on. There are programs that we are planning to roll out over the next few months in order to assist businesses. We are currently assisting our clients that are in our portfolio to make sure that they have got those that support mainly in the form of solar products. Because in the past, we had funded clients to buy generators, but that has proved not to be economically viable because of the amount of diesel that they are burning. So we are looking at other alternative energy sources to assist them. So that's definitely, we have identified that need, and we are assisting the companies in order to meet it and to make sure that they thrive. I will touch on those, CEO, and stop there. Thank you very much.
Chairperson, we'll stop there and you'll tell us if we have missed anything, because we fully agree with most of the comments that were raised by Honorable Nxamashe as well. You know, you are talking to the converted, where he's saying we need to be making sure that we assist the country to actually create a new industrial capacity in the economy, that we shouldn't just look at the companies that we support as SMMEs, but we should be looking at growing those SMMEs into becoming global players in the economy. We have lots and lots of examples of what we are saying, Honorable Nxamashe, where we would have started with a 10 million rand investment, increase it to 50 million, then go to the private sector, other DFIs, and they would end up investing billions of rands into those entities. But that's a discussion for another day. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CEO. I think I don't see any other hands here. But definitely we had robust engagement, and also we like to have those response maybe in a written format that will be forwarded to the committee so that we are able to further engage on them. And also like to appreciate the presentation. We have outlined most of the issues here, but we have raised as a concern at the committee that I think we have now to change our mindset in terms of our rural provinces, because really we need support for developmental of rural and underdevelopment of the provinces in terms of financials and non-financials. And also look at the issues of a township economy that we can be able at least to assist them moving forward as rural provinces. And also check as to what we can do now currently, because there's this challenge of energy, and also what we can do in terms of changing the mindset in terms of the business of hemp and cannabis. Those can be assisted, and they are plowed in the rural areas. But in any way, thank you very much, CEO and the executive, for responding. I don't know if the department, Mama Tomela, have a word or so. We can give this opportunity to you to can respond. If none, then we can continue with the meeting moving forward. Any response, Mama Tomela, the department, or any word of welcome?
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, as always, as a department, we thank the committee for the opportunity for the department and the entities to come and present in front of the committee. We appreciate and value the comments received, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thanks very much. The committee secretariat, let's see what is followed on the agenda.
Thank you, Chairperson. Can we leave?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, CEO and the team. Yes, you are released in the meeting. We will continue, and we're looking forward for your response, the written response, in terms of whatever clarity that you might seek to address the committee with. Thank you.
We'll do so, Honorable Chairperson, and thank you very much, honorable members, for the opportunity. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Committee Secretariat.
Chairperson, would you like us to address next week's meetings, Chair?
I wanted us to check in terms of agenda. We're done with our questions, and now
Chair,
we will share in terms of announcement or what in terms of the program. Yes.
James, that was our agenda for today. We can just do announcements, Chair, because we only had the NEF scheduled for today. Chair, if I may, can I proceed, Chair?
Please proceed with announcement, Honorable
Chair.
Member.
We received a request from the ministry, who asked us for to change some items on the program. The minister wished to inform the committee that he has been asked by the next week Tuesday is a visit from is a Ugandan presidential visit, and the minister has asked to accompany to be available for the president on the 28th. So we just need to make some changes to our program. If I may, shall I speak to the possible changes, Chair, for next week?
No problem. You can continue with the changes so that we are able to deal with them. Thank you.
Next week, we will meet with the IDC only next week, and followed by that, we will meet with on Wednesday next week, we will have the briefing by DTIC, ITAC, National Treasury SARS on the implementation of ITAC's tariff amendment or trade remedies recommendation. The meeting with the minister will take place now on the 14th of March and not on the 28th. That was the changes that was proposed, requested by the minister, because he's not available next Tuesday because he's required to be in attendance with the president to receive the presidential delegation from Uganda.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Andre. Just that we'll request that we circulate the changes in terms of the program so that each and every member will be able to speak to it in our caucuses here.
No problem.
In fact of that, we will welcome to have that circulated. Thanks very much. Any other announcement? If none,
no.
Let me take this opportunity and thank all members for being part of this meeting. We have an engagement, deliberate engagement, and robust debate. We will encourage members to do so in the future so that we are able to see our representative in Parliament, that we are able to raise their concern. Thank you very much for being part of this meeting, and this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you.